here we are, another exciting instalment of the Scouser on the Scot.
Well, today we've got someone very interesting for myself, and I've been looking forward to this one. We've got George Donoghue. George works at Waterbear College, and also has his own record label. I believe he's also in his own band. So he's got absolutely loads going on. George, how the hell are you doing, mate? Are you
I'm
keeping
good.
well?
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a weird time. It's been busy. I think managed to stay just as busy, which for me, I think I'm the type of person I like to stay busy and stay on top of things. So yeah, it's been I've managed to do that, which is good.
That is the most important thing, because as I say, during this period, it's been craziness right the way through, impacting everyone.
Absolutely.
So let's get down to some questions. We've got about 10 questions for you, George, if that's okay, mate.
Absolutely.
So let's fire away. Can you give us a bit of background into your first introduction to music? And what kind of music you listened to when you was back then?
When I guess we were all introduced to music by our parents and things like that. I guess the first time I discovered music, I guess I discovered music myself was when I first heard like the Tony Hawk's games. I remember hearing like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 and like the soundtrack to that, and especially like Tony Hawk's Underground. It was just right at this age where I discovered skateboarding and music at the same time. And I don't really skate anymore. I can't. But at the time, it was just like, for a 9-year-old kid, it was like these two things just went hand in hand. And I was like, this was amazing. Which I think has really influenced as well the type of music and the way I like to make music as well.
Oh, that's cool. So who in particular inspired you, like musicians-wise or band-wise, who inspired you to actually get involved in music or play music, I should say?
My dad. So my dad ran an indie label all my entire life. I grew up with it in the house, basically. So whilst at that point he wasn't really playing, I was just engrossed in this sort of cottage industry music scene, I guess. There would always be my dad and several members of staff just doing stuff, and we had like a little studio in the house, and I think it was definitely that. And then I think when I obviously then started discovering my own bands, I guess for me Blink was the biggest thing. When I heard it, was like, holy fuck, that's amazing. And then again, I guess my first fascination of a musician was Dave Grohl. It was the first time I'd seen someone not just have to be a singer or just have to be a drummer, and seeing that people can move around and that they're fluid. And then when you actually look into it, obviously it's far more common than you realize that people do multiple roles, own labels, do all these things. But for me, it was Dave Grohl was the first time I think I ever really saw it. And I think still he's kind of a bastion for that. He's a figurehead for it,
Definitely, because I was just reading up about Dave Grohl today. He was saying he still jams with the guys from Nirvana, and I just thought that's amazing. It's just for him to just the way he is, like he's a world class drummer. He's a quality drummer, quality frontman. He's got everything going for him, and he is meant to be a really genuine guy. I'd love to meet him and have that conversation with him, like so.
Yeah,
I was reading the thing that he said there because they were asking a question, and I think it was Music Week magazine, and they said to him about what was it like when he opened. I think he played the president's inauguration. He said, well, two things about it, he says, was the first thing was it was just great to get rid of the previous president. And then the second one was, he says, it's really weird, he says, because I still think in my head we're a garage band. And I'm like, yeah, the Foo Fighters are a garage band, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say it's quite funny. I've kind of gone through my grips and gripes with some of it because I love the Sonic Highway stuff and all those albums, and the Wasting Light album was a huge success. It's a great album. I love that record to bits. But I did kind of find some of it at that particular point in time. There was this view that death to Pro Tools and everything should be analog and tape. And whilst I understand that mentality, and I am of that mentality too, to a degree, I was also kind of like, yeah, but you've also got to respect that like Logic and Pro Tools is my generation's equivalent of 4-track tape machines. And I felt some of it, I think, yeah, we could all make, I think it's something that's got to be taken into consideration. But yeah, I kind of went off Dave Grohl for a bit, and then came back to it and was like, nah, actually, I loved that play thing he did as well. It was a great concept, and I think what he does for music is amazing.
You've just said something quite interesting there, George. Obviously, we were talking about we'd all love to do it by tape. However, we all know how expensive doing it by tape can be.
Mm-hmm.
And if the way the money is at the moment, the way bands are struggling for cash, if you can use Logic, GarageBand, anything like that, Pro Tools, you do what you can do with the tools you are given. And I'd highly recommend the guys, if you have an opportunity to work on tape, have a go at it. But if you're strapped with cash and you need to, definitely use the tools handed to you, because, as I say, there's quite a lot of good stuff out there. There's a lot of great guys out there as well who can help you with the doors and help you get the sound that you're after. And I think that's key.
I'll tell you what, it's somebody that was, when I sang with bands, only ever did everything on tape. There's nothing fucking quite like you've spent 3 days in a studio and the tape breaks.
Yeah, it's always one thing I say to my students is, especially now as well with COVID, with a lot of them maybe not having access to the same resources and things like that. One of the things I always say is it's about being creative with the tools that you do have, not about the gear that you don't. I could happily make a record, and have done, with just this microphone in this room. I've forced myself to just sit here with my acoustic guitar and use just that mic. None of the other stuff that I've got, or the booth, or it wasn't perfect, but it was about, for me, it was about the art of capturing it and really honing in on the tools you have and learning how to use them, rather than thinking you need every single tool.
Definitely. John, over to you, mate.
Right, so can you give us a brief overview of your musical journey to get to this point? Primarily we're up to where you're at now, and then we'll go into that, George.
Yeah, I mean, I started playing in bands when I got a guitar when I was 9. I started playing in bands when I was about 13. Joined my first proper band at 17. Did that band all the way through till 22, 23. That was called Reverbed, which, that was, I learned it. I cut my teeth with that band. We did everything you could do wrong. And I loved it. I'd do it all again. And I'm still friends with everyone, and we're all now in the scene together, kind of thing. At that point, that was when I started learning to record at the same time. And then I joined just as I was kind of hitting my, okay, I can actually charge for recording now, and it's of a standard, and I was getting, actually getting jobs, turning pro, I guess. At that point was when I met the guys from River Becomes Ocean, and I started playing with them. And I'm still doing that today. That was about 2015. I also worked as a manager at that point with Colour of Noise, with Bruce, which is how I met them. And then, that's kind of brings me to where I am now, where I'm just at this transition with, the new things I'm starting to do as well that have all happened in the last 6 months with the label and Sonic Workshops. But really, that bed of River Becomes Ocean and all that stuff is still there. It's all kind of built out of the same families, as it were.
So you are a bit of a musical all-rounder. So if you had to give me an elevator pitch, we've only got a few floors for you to do it. Can you to describe yourself in order of what you think you are, most importantly to yourself? How would you do that? Producer first, musician first. What is it?
If it's what's important to me most, I'm a lover of songs. Ultimately, songs comes first. And really then it comes down to, how can I get involved in this project? Where is there a potential need? If I really love a band and a project, I'll just be like, yo, how can I get involved in this? Because it's sick. So I guess that, obviously, in terms of ranking it, and if you go on my social media, it says songwriter, producer, musician, across that ilk. But that's really at the core of it, a lover of songs, I would say.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So what support do you actually give? Obviously, I know you work at Waterbear College and stuff like that, but what is your actual role there?
So
what does you actually do?
Waterbear, I am the head of music production. So my job is I designed, me and my team, the team leader of the degree, designed the audio courses. So my job is to, once we've sort of come up with the bits we think they should learn, my job is like, okay, how do I make that interesting to everybody? You know, not just rock people, because obviously some people might just see me as a rock guy and I have to be like, nah, here's a soul record I did or something. I'll be like, here's an example of something else, and really it's about showing them how these skills are applicable across every genre and the techniques. So my role is to help design that content really, as head of department, and make sure that we have the best tutors that we can and everyone's delivering really, and that it relates to the most students.
Well, there will be some people watching this that don't have a clue what Waterbear is. Could you just talk us through what Waterbear is, a little bit of history about it, and why you consider it?
I mean, Waterbear is a brand new music college, or new in the last 2-3 years, in the centre of Brighton, in the heart of Brighton. They offer online and on-site degrees. But even the on-site degrees are based in what's called flipped learning. So the idea of flipped learning is, when we did maths at school, your maths teacher would read it from a book, and then you'd go home, do your homework, not understand what you were doing, and get frustrated. What we do at Waterbear is you learn the concept that we're going to be covering in class beforehand, and we effectively almost do the homework and the teamwork in class. So it's a really cool way of learning. And it also means that if you are out on tour, or you're in an active career, because that's what we're trying to help people build here, you can still do that. I did my whole master's degree whilst out on the road, from Waterbear. So really I think Waterbear is sort of at that evolution in education. They're the first people to really be offering this in music education. And that's why I think people, should go there. And that's why I teach there, because I truly believe we're bettering a way. I think it's a better way to learn, personally.
So who is it? Is it just like a normal college in that it's part of the further education system? Is it private? Where does it fit into what we would call the normal?
So it's a private institution, founded by Bruce John Dickinson from Little Angels and Adam Bushell, and it is, all the degrees come from the University of Falmouth at the minute, so it's validated by Falmouth. Okay. So you get a great degree, but you're taught by industry experts as well, which is what's amazing about it for me. You've actually got every single tutor is out there doing it, and pretty much most of the staff there are all out there doing it as well. So you're really kind of ingrained in this world of professionalism from day one.
What do you cover? Is it one course and everybody does the one course, or can you have variations on it?
So it's different courses. So obviously there's MA, BA, things like that. But then also you have, I'm just going to make sure I don't get this wrong, because this is subject to change. Then you pick a discipline basically, but your degree is in career musicianship.
All right.
So you can do a BA honours in career musicianship, and you can do a BA honours in electronic music as well. But really, then you pick a discipline. So obviously you get songwriters, singers, drummers, guitarists. But within that, you learn more about your discipline, obviously, but everyone still learns about the basics of recording. So everyone gets this, really, we're almost training people for this, to have a basic understanding of the industry and their specialism. So they're always adaptable, and it's an empowering way to learn, really. Everyone learns the basic of management and all those things as well.
That's cool. So what's the kind of costs for it? Roughly.
I think it's the standard fees. It's covered by student loan. So it's the standard student fees amount, as far as I'm aware. And yeah, it's covered by the UK student loan system.
All right. George, so if anyone was interested in obviously getting in touch with either yourself or Waterbear, what's the best way of doing it? Would it just be a case of going online and applying and seeing how you get in?
Yeah, so you can find all the information at waterbear.org.uk. You can get yourself a digital prospectus. They're running digital open days. So everything's still very much, available to the students. So you just go on to waterbear.org.uk. And also if you're wanting to book an open day or book any of that, all the information's there.
That's cool. So we've talked a bit about Waterbear. Can we go into one that caught my sort of imagination because I love the name, apart from anything else, was can you talk us through Sonic Workshops, what it's all about and your role in it?
Yeah, absolutely. So Sonic Workshops is my baby. It's a company that I founded with my friend Danny Harvey. So he manages River Becomes Ocean, the band I'm in. And we offer one-to-one mentoring in the music industry. So similar concept to what Waterbear is doing, but rather than degrees, it's almost like pay as you go, one-to-one mentoring time. So obviously a degree isn't for everybody. Some people on degrees still choose this option as well. But it's also just, it's that little bit more affordable for that little top up. And it kind of bridges the gap for me between, you know, music teaching and degree level teaching. It kind of bridges that gap between the two and caters for both worlds.
I think that's boss. I think I like that idea.
So what do you cover in it, George? You know, what's the subjects that you cover in that?
Well, basically, you can book a one-to-one with any mentor or any members of the team. So currently we have music business tutors, music production tutors, tour production tutors, instrumental and songwriting tutors. And one of the ones that I'm most excited about is content creation tutors as well. So we have like touring photographers who are, you know, Jar works with Beartooth and Architects and all those bands. Ian Dickinson, not Ian Dickinson, sorry. Ian Coulson works with Ian Coulson's works with 30 Seconds to Mars, as it is a bunch of other bands as well. So he's been doing that end of things. So it kind of, that was always an area of the industry as a kid I was super interested in, but it's a mystery. It's a complete mystery. Never mind the music industry mystery. It's even more so. So really what we want to do with Sonic Workshops is we want to take away that level of mystery that surrounds the music industry and make it this interconnected thing that it actually is. You know, it is all about interconnection and the network. And for us, Sonic Workshops was a way of helping bridge that gap and build a community. Like really for us, our goal here is to build a community and a network of people who are supporting each other, encouraging accountability and team building and networking.
I love that ethos because it's something similar to what we're trying to achieve here, where we're trying to encourage people to follow the right directions, get in touch with the people who know, the people who've experienced things, and not get, I hate to say this, get fleeced. We all know that there's people out there in the music industry who will take every penny off you if they can, and you'll get nothing out of it. And this is where I'm like, I was so made up that when John said, like, you know, we've got it with George, because like with yourself, George, because I was thinking, you know what, you're in Waterbear College, you've got your Sonic Workshops, and it's things like that where I think if people could just reach out, see what you guys are doing, and follow in your footsteps or get in touch with you to better themselves, we've done our job because we've pushed them in the right direction. And I think that's one of the main things, like, you know what I mean? So that's off to you guys. Like I say, we'll push anyone to you guys any day of the week.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey. I mean, it was in July, it was an idea. That's how quick this has started. Like, wow. I called Danny at the beginning of July. It was just after I'd launched Favor the Brave, and Danny messaged me saying, "Congrats on the label, man. Like, let me know if you want any help." And I was like, "Actually, yeah, I'd love to get Danny involved in the label. It'd be really cool." And then I just said, "Oh, by the way, I've got this other idea. I've got this idea called we called it the Artist's Toolbox." And it was an idea of this bolt-on services for bands that can get, you know, management. And I was like, it feels a bit, it can fall very easily with even though it has the right intentions, it could quite easily fall into that fleeceable category and be misused, mistrusted. Yeah. And then I was talking to Andy Guitar, who's a guitar teacher on YouTube. He's like one of the biggest guitar tutors on YouTube. We were just chatting. I asked him for some input and he was like, "Dude, why create courses when you've already got all the mentors?" And I was like, and it was Andy Guitar that changed the game for me, I've got to admit on this. And then as soon as I approached Danny, we hit the ground running. And from July, we went live on August 1st this year. And it's been nothing but, you know, smiles and incredible response from everyone involved. So yeah, I'm very grateful for the response from the people around me and the industry, and obviously for Danny's input as well. Like without it wouldn't be a company without Danny Harvey. He's very much the, you know, making it happen, and I can never, you know, express the gratitude for that and how it's going.
That's
the
cool.
thing that we've got with this is, you know, because like in my business side of things, we also do a thing called the Forge Ahead Initiative, which is a free young band mentoring program. Simpler, there's no courses, there's nothing. It's just us doing sort of spreading our knowledge with them and trying to help them to the next level. So anything like this, what you're talking about, George, it's what we believe. I'm nearly 60, and I've lived through a lot of years of a lot of different stages of music, and nothing's ever really changed because it was always kept. Those that wanted to make money and were making money kept that to themselves, and nobody was helping. And as long as nobody would come out and just say things or say, no, you don't do that. Here's another, or here's another. Just what you did. You had an idea and somebody came along the way. It's a great idea, but why not do it that way? You know, and this is what we need, and this is what this is all about. So I'm really pleased that, you know, there's other people out there getting off their asses, looking at the problem that the industry has and trying to do something about it.
Well, that's why the industry got to a certain point, I think. I you know, obviously I'm 28. I don't, you know, claim to be a wizard and know how the industry was before I was even in it, you know, but I was in it right at a point where the major industry was kind of abandoning guitar bands left, right, and center. The Kooks and that had their day, and about 2008 rocked around, and they just went, guitar music's dead. And the head of Sony even said it. He was like that. Yeah, it's dead. We don't care. And then what I think happened is the music, that side of it got a little bit stale. People stopped working on stuff, and this isn't just guitar bands. I'm talking about all bands here. But then I think people have to take a little bit of spirit from that SoundCloud rapper community, that crowd who are just going, yo, I wrote a song today, fuck it, I'm gonna put it online, and then they just do the same thing tomorrow, and they're just churning stuff out because they love it. And that then is that's why people get involved and follow, you know, that's why people follow these artists, not because they're, you know, they're doing something every they're not like all this big campaign. They're putting out music that's cool and they're engaging with it. And these people are engaging back with the people that like their music and kind of saying fuck you to everyone else and not worrying about it. And I think that's where we need to sort of take a little bit of a lesson from that side of the industry a little bit.
It's really funny because it's come around at least 3 times in my 4th times now in my lifetime. This kind of gets overblown, and then somebody decides that that's not what they want anymore. And it started with punk. Well, it probably started with rock and roll, but that was before my time, even. So your punk version, then you had your rap, hip hop, and now this as well. You know, like these guys with the SoundCloud, and we're just going to record it. And unfortunately, I think it's a cycle that happens all the time. And people like what you're doing could be the thing that stops, you know, that could generate something else as well. We all have a part to play in it, but we also have to remember that, in my opinion, that, you know, just because something's working, it's not working for everybody. So we need to take the wheels off that bloody thing, rebuild it, and make it better for everybody.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of, I don't know, the music industry is a funny place at the minute, in my opinion. There's in some areas, I think it's the blind leading the blind, and maybe who knows better. Like, you know, it's evolving daily. But what, for me, I am seeing working is that it's not about stats and numbers. And this is something I remember Liam from the Cancer Bat said. We were in the van on the way to a show with them, and he was like, yo, I don't care how many Spotify listeners you got. It's how many people are going to turn up to that room. And, you know, when I started out, it was about how many people would turn up to a show. And it wasn't about MySpace numbers or anything like that. My band was #1 in MySpace for 3 weeks when I was 17, above Paramore and Biffy Clyro. We didn't get anything out of it. No one gave a fuck. It just disappeared. I don't know how we did it. It was some fluke, probably because I was just constantly adding people in the studio board. But it's not about numbers. It's about true fans. You know, that's why they call it the 1,000 fan, the true fan model. You know, that's why they call it that. And you know, you could have 100,000 followers on Instagram or whatever, but how many of them are true fans? And I think this Patreon evolution is good. I like where that's going. I think we have to be very careful as musicians because it could very quickly again go the pledge route. It could be over abused by major artists and lose what it was intended for. Again, the bridging between these two communities almost. It could easily be lost. So I think musicians need to be wary and aware of how they treat these systems so they're not abused.
Mm.
So you also, as we've touched upon previously, you've got a record label called Favor the Brave Records.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk us through it? And also, can you tell us, like, about the bands? What bands are you targeting at? And what bands have you got on?
Yeah, for sure. So, Favor the Brave has been an idea since 2012. I used to basically, when I was at uni, I put on shows to play in Brighton so we could get gigs. And I was like, let's all, I said, I'd go to all the other bands in the uni, but like, why would anyone come and see your band if you won't go and watch theirs? Why don't we put on a night where rather than someone fleecing us, we put on our own night that's like a student night. Everyone comes and watches everyone, and the money is split evenly between all the bands. So that was the concept. It ran pretty well for about a year and a half. I branched it out and did it across the country. So I would run tours that way. That's how Reverbed basically developed a touring network. And we did it that way. Unfortunately, when it lost money, where's that going to come from? Because you've given away you've split it all evenly. It came out of my pocket, and I eventually couldn't sustain it. Then last year, 2020, I then was like, I'm going to launch this as a label. And my dad, as I said, like ran record labels his whole life. My whole life that I've been seeing it all. And he kind of was winding it down, but he still had all his accounts with like Sony and stuff. So he was like, do you want this account with Sony? And I was like, I'd be dumb not to. Like, I'm releasing my own music. I'm working with incredible independent artists that I believe in. And I was like, so I said yes to my dad. And then I was working with the guys from After, who are now After Reason. And they basically, I was like, yo, dudes, like really back to what I said at the beginning. I was like, I love this project. How can I be involved? Because at the time they didn't have a guitarist, or not that I was aware of. And then they were like, no, we've got the band. And I was like, oh, okay, grumpy. And I was like, how about I put it out? I love it. Can I put it out? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And that's where it came from.
Yeah, that's cool. Can we move on to your producing side now? Because there may be somebody watching this that wants to go down that route, or maybe they don't know enough about it. So can you talk us through, how you get into producing, the kind of skill sets that you feel that you need, the attributes? So anything at all that you can sort of share with anybody watching this about production?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as I said, I got into production like around 2018, maybe. I'd always been doing demos and stuff from home since like 2011, like, GarageBand, putting covers on YouTube as like a 14-year-old kid. I was always figuring it out. And then I produced, the first record I did was a record called This Machine for my band Reverbed. So I was learning it because I was T-boying at a time to do that. From that, yeah, it's grown into what it is now. I'm fairly happy with where my career on that side of it's at. I love what I'm doing. I love the artists I get to work with. In terms of skill sets, I think it's determination and drive. You've got to have that ability to want to learn. I am truly a bit of a nerd. I have no qualms in that, like in my past, I remember my ex coming up to me and was like, when did you learn this stuff? Because when we got together, you didn't know it. And I was like, well, it was like a 7-year relationship. And I was like, well, over that relationship, when you were watching Netflix or whatever every night, and I'm nerding out in there, so that's what I've been doing. And I've been learning this shit and got okay at it, I guess. So you got to have that want to learn, because you can learn principles and things like that, and people can teach you, but obviously you want to push your own sounds and learn what other people are doing in other genres and how it can create something interesting. So if you can learn a DAW, you'll get by. Like, it's great fun. I don't ever feel lonely producing, because I've always got something I can be working on and happy and creating. I think being able to create art in that way took out that need what Tom DeLonge talks about in the Pursuit of Tone documentary, where he says, like, I don't see why you need permission to act, to create art. Why should I have to ask this major label if I can make an album? Like, surely I can just fucking go and make an album. I can do what I want. And I love that attitude. It's like, I'm in my garage right now. I can come down here and make a record whenever I want. And, you know, anyone can do that. You could have a laptop and be in the back of a van. Marvin in River Becomes Ocean, I remember him scoring an advert on the flight back from Los Angeles. And I was just like, that's sick. Like, so yeah, I think skill set, you need to be driven. But I think for, you know, I imagine anybody listening to this podcast is going to be a driven person. You know, you've already gone to that effort for finding the knowledge.
Surely patience must come into it, because I watched a program which was about Dr. Dre, the Defiant Ones. It was actually Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre. Have you seen it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I highly recommend it. I don't care if you're into hip hop or anything like that. It's just worth watching if you're into music. But his what I would call nerdiness, Dr. Dre, and sitting there with the mixing desk and all that sort of stuff, you know, and tweaking things. I was like, that drove me crazy. But you must also have to have a very good ear, surely.
Yeah, I mean, who is it saying? I've been saying to students recently, a lot of them go, I'm a perfectionist, and perfectionist is kind of a negative word. And I was like, no, you've got attention to detail. Like, that's a positive way of looking at the same sentence. And I feel as a producer, yes, you have to have that attention to detail, but you develop it. I didn't have it. The first time I ever saw it in a producer that I got to work with was a guy called Matt Ellis, who does some of the Scam records and stuff like that. And him and my dad actually owned a studio back in the day. And then my dad had put my band in there when I was about 19. We'd gone in and worked with Matt. And I was like, oh, I get it. You know, we'd done the song and we played the song. I was like, yeah, we nailed the take. And he was like, yeah, what else can we add? You know, what could go over this section? And ever since then, I remember whenever that band came out and we were demoing ourselves, we would always be like, what would Matt make us do? What would Matt ask us? And that then, as a train of thought, got into my head. At the same time, I was being taught by a guy called Mark Flannery at university, who he's worked with like Def Leppard and stuff like that. So Mark was like, also spurred this attention to detail when listening. And these two things kind of happened at the exact same time in my life. So rather than just listening to a song, listening like what instruments come in at what points, how they interact, you know, the harmonic value that they bring. When does the tambourine come in? And I was doing that. And alongside all of that, I was basically busking to live. So I haven't had a real job since I was 16. I started busking at 16. Basically, after I worked at McDonald's, I started busking at 16 and realized I weighed way more busking than I did in a week at McDonald's. So stopped working there. And what that did is it made me learn what songs people like and in real time see what earned me money. And I guess that was my form of critical analysis as well. You know, listening to songs, how can we make it better? Those two things at a point in my life just married up perfectly. And with the drive that I was going through some shit, and like, you know, most people when they're going through stuff get their head down and just, you know, knuckle on. I think at the time, all those things just married up for me.
It always amazed me because I remember reading some books about U2 in the 80s. Well, this was the 90s, but it was about when they were writing the 80s. And quite often they went into the studio to record and they didn't really have any ideas. They would start doing it there and then they'd have the idea, and then Brian Eno would come along. And then Brian Eno would sit there and go, oh, yeah. And they'd go away and come back and it'd be completely different.
Yeah.
Actually, it was Daniel Lanois that was doing most of it, more than Eno. But I always found that, so I was never in a band. I was never lucky to be in a band where we could afford anybody or employed anybody to do that magic. They recorded what we played. And it's always made me wonder about what it would have been like to have that kind of alchemist that can go, this is what we need here.
Yeah, it's a really, I don't know, it's a weird role. Like, you basically, if you want to be a producer, the skill set, you're also going to have to learn to engineer. It's just part of the parcel. These two roles are now ingrained in one another. You get people who are engineers for sure. I've got loads of mates who know the tech side of it way better than I do, because I'm not amazing at the tech side of it in terms of, you know, patch. If I had to wire my studio myself, I'd cry. Well, I need to rewire it, and I basically am putting it off for that reason. But yeah, I think getting to work, for me, it was such an eye-opening experience. I think once you work with a producer, you understand the value of a producer. Like we see when you get the right producer, someone who understands your vision and where you're, and this is why it's important to research the producers you want to work with if you're an artist. What do they bring to the table, because some producers will be more of like a top line or co-writing specialist. Some people everyone's known for different things, and that's what's great is it's not oversaturated because we are all individuals and all different. What is important is we know how to bring out the best of what we bring to each project. So I very much kind of see my role these days as like a co-writer. Like a lot of bands come to me in the songwriting stage, and I'll be working on ideas with them. Some bands come to me fully formed songs, and my job might be as simple as like, it's still, how can we make this better? It's just, okay, why don't we add a harmony? It might be as simple as let's add a harmony and do something else here and here and here. It could be a really simple job. Equally, some of them can be quite tasking, depending on the band.
So you also, going back to Favour the Brave, you offer career advice.
So no, sorry.
Career guidance.
That was basically actually the subsidiary or the predecessor to Sonic Workshops.
Okay.
So that makes sense. In the weird time after putting on shows fell apart, and actually I'd just finished being in a band at that point, let's say 2014 maybe, that was when I met Bruce and everybody. And I was actually, I went on a tour with them with Thunder as the driver and guitar tech for the first ever tour. And it was great. I had a great time, came back, and I just remember Bruce being like, yeah, you're pretty switched on with it. I'm doing this and I don't have time to sort of do the day-to-day running of a band. And he basically, without this opportunity, I 100% wouldn't be where I am right now. He basically put me on a wage. He, out of his own pocket, put me on £500 a month. And that changed my life. It was for about 8 months or a year, but it just gave me that little bit of stability and that mentoring from him. And that's where it came from. And in that period, that's when I started doing a little bit of mentoring through Favour the Brave. But it was with very young bands, really, at this point.
Okay, let's reword the question, because obviously you've worked with some very knowledgeable people, and you still do, including yourself. You've gained enough knowledge. What would you advise an up-and-coming band, what they need to succeed and what they need to pay attention to?
Attention to detail. So find your tribe. I think we never live in such an age where it is easy to find a microcosm of your tribe, your people, the people who you connect with. Find them, whether it's go on Reddit and find the appropriate threads or whatever. Find the right people. Work with good people. Is everyone in your band carrying their weight? And if not, do they at least know their role? In some bands, some people are the writers. In most bands, there's usually one or two people who are the driving force. But if you are delegating stuff to others, does it get done? That's, at the very minimum, everyone needs to be carrying the weight they're assigned. So work with good people. And then consistency and persistency. Music we're kind of coming out of this weird thing where music was focused in bursts. You had a campaign, you had an album, then it went into the touring phase, and it had this cycle. Well, the cycle's still there, it's just changed. At the minute, especially while there's no touring at the minute, it's all about everyone's, especially as label, I'm focused on Spotify releases, playlists, all those things. But again, I'm saying this, I have failed with it with Monster Eats the Pilot, with my own project, is maintaining consistency and persistency. It's about having, not about releasing 4 songs at once and then not doing anything for 2 years. It's about, just regularly, effectively, like you do maintain any relationship. You guys will talk to each other outside of this, and your friends, like, it's just like that with your music. You're almost making the offering of, here's some music, and people go, thank you. And then in another month you go, here's some more music. And they go, ah, this is good. And then it stays. That's
yeah, definitely. That makes perfect sense.
That's cool. I mean, it's a bit like, one of my other young bands asked me about that. They wanted to put out an album before they put out a single. And I was like, and who are you aiming it at? You know? And I used the example of the big shops, you know, the big businesses. When they advertise regularly all the time. They don't just put one big campaign out and then forget it for 6 months. And that was kind of how I said to them, because I said, if you only put it out there once, then you're hoping somebody's going to see it and remember it for 6 months. I said, whereas if you keep drip feeding that, and it's new stuff, you're constantly in their mind, so that when they're in the mood to do that, or that's something switches. And it's just a common sense principle that people don't seem to get it.
Well, everything's quick and everyone wants everything now. You know, we live in the social media culture of instant gratification, which I fall susceptible to myself. But equally, it's just like working out. It's no point just running a marathon at the weekend and then not doing anything for a year. You know, you've got to, you're training, you're building something. And it's about that consistency and persistency for me. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, proper. Okay, let's fast forward. The final thing that I want to cover with you is, let's fast forward donkey's years, and you're sitting there and you're looking back on the vast majority of your body of work, what you've done in the music business. What would success look like to you, George?
If I can pay my bills and, you know, look after my family, like in whatever stance that is, and do the thing I love, that's success. And I can be happy whilst doing it, then that's success to me. You know, it's about for me, it's what I love about my job is the friendships and the relationships I have with all my friends and where that grows, and seeing everyone blossom together. You know, it sucked to be like super successful and then just be there on your own. Like, what's the point in that? Like, you know, for me, success is a community feeling, and it's about having people around you, whether that's family, friends, or whatever. So for me, if I can do that and pay my bills and have all that, that's success.
That's cool.
Do you know what? I was just going to say the exact same thing. It's like, I love the actual community that is being built up in the rock industry, in the metal industry, in the other music genres and stuff like that. And it's nice to see and just have a chat with people who are passionate about the scene and want to help bands. So, like I say, George, it's absolutely a pleasure, mate, to speak to you today.
You. Yeah, thank you.
One last thing, though. I always throw in an extra question at the end. If you ever watch the Scouser and the Scot, you know what's coming. Can you give us all your links? Where can we get in touch with you, George? Where can we find out about your label? How can we get in touch if you want to go to Waterbear College? Give us your links, mate.
Cool. So Sonic Workshops is just at Sonic Workshops on any platform, or sonicworkshops.co.uk. My music is Monster Eats the Pilot, which again is just at Monster Eats the Pilot anywhere. River Becomes Ocean, the same, at River Becomes Ocean. Favor the Brave, at Favor the Brave. And my personal links is at I am George Donoghue, or georgedonoghue.co.uk.
What I'll do, George, I'll throw them all down there. So, guys, if you are watching this and you want to get in touch with George, please reach out to him. He's a very approachable guy, as you found out today. He's a lovely guy, full of knowledge, with great contacts as well. And I'm sure, George, you'll be quite happy to help out as much as you can, possibly. So, Joe, it's over to you, mate.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, what can I say? I hope you've enjoyed this as much as we have. It's always a pleasure bringing people like George into your lives, and we think that's where the strength lies in the music industry for the future. So until the next time, you know what to do. Hit that cowbell and subscribe.